Ever get that feeling like, you're talking about something and then boom, the internet's showing you ads for it? Like I was just saying I needed some hiking boots and now my feed is full of them.
Hmm.
It's a little creepy, right?
It is a bit unnerving, yeah.
Well, today we're deep diving into all that, like data privacy.
Right.
Specifically, we're looking at this thing called opt-in versus opt-out consent.
Huh?
We've got this article from Security. They're a dick security company. And the article is Opt-in vs. Opt-out consent, difference and how to implement each. So we're going to figure out how these things actually work, like what they mean in practice, like those cookie banners that pop up everywhere. And then also how laws like GDPR and CCPA are kind of changing the rules of the game.
Right.
And to help us sort through all of this, we have an expert on data privacy and consent management.
Happy to be here.
I think most of us kind of know our data is being collected, but I'm
Yeah.
curious about the details, like what exactly is opt-in and opt-out consent?
Well, think of it this way. It's about control over your own data. So opt-in is about actively choosing. Like when you sign up for a newsletter, right? You're checking a box, you're giving permission, you're saying, yeah, use my email. You're making the choice.
Okay, so that makes sense. So opt-out would be the flip side. They're just assuming you're okay with it unless you, jump through hoops to say no.
You got it. You're automatically in.
Yeah.
You have to take action to get out. Some people don't love this because it feels like your consent is just taken for granted.
That's a good point. I mean, I'm guilty of this myself. Like those cookie banners, I just hit accept all without thinking.
Yeah, it happens. It's easy to do. But it shows why it's important to understand these mechanisms, the design of those banners, what choices they give you. It's often shaped by data privacy laws, like those you mentioned, GDPR and CCPA.
Oh, yeah. Those are the big ones. Can you break down why they're so significant?
Sure. So GDPR, that's the European Union's regulation. It's a big deal because it really favors opt-in consent. Companies need your clear, affirmative yes before they can use your data, especially for things like cookies. No more pre-checked boxes or assuming that silence means yes. It reflects the idea that your data belongs to you, not to the companies.
So it's kind of like a power shift back to the users.
Exactly. And then there's CCPA, California's law. It gives people the right to opt out of the sale of their data. You'll see, do not sell my personal information links on websites. That's CCPA.
I see those links all the time, but I'll be honest, I don't always click.
I think that's pretty common. But, CCPA and GDPR are just two examples. You've got LGPD in Brazil, and many other countries are doing similar things. It's a global trend.
Wow, so it's not just a US or Europe thing, it's a worldwide movement toward stronger data privacy.
Absolutely. And this shift has a big impact on how businesses operate.
I can see that. Okay, this all makes sense in theory, but what about in the real world? How do these play out in practice? What about email marketing? I feel like I get so many promotional emails. How much of that is based on my actual consent?
That's a great example. Email marketing is one area where opt-in is becoming really crucial. Many countries require companies to get your permission before adding you to their lists. But of course, you still have the option to opt out, right? That unsubscribe link at the bottom of emails.
Right, right. Speaking of things that feel a little invasive, what about those ads that seem to follow you around the web? Is that part of this whole consent thing too?
Yeah, you're talking about retargeting. It definitely raises privacy concerns.
Yeah.
Because it's tracking what you do online to show you those personalized ads.
Yeah, it's a little freaky.
They're often using technologies like browser fingerprinting, which can identify you based on your browser settings. They may also use data brokers, companies that collect and sell info about people, to target you with even more specific ads.
That's a little unsettling, to be honest. But are there ways to opt out of that stuff?
Yes, usually you can find options to opt out of personalized ads in a website's privacy settings, or through industry-wide initiatives. It can be a bit of a maze to find them all, though.
And it's not just the websites themselves, right? Don't companies share our data with other companies, too?
That's right. They often use third-party tools for things like analytics or marketing, which can lead to your data being shared with a whole network of companies. And again, there are usually some opt-out options within a platform's settings to control this.
So it sounds like navigating all of this requires us to be really, proactive and informed.
That's the big takeaway, I think. Be aware of how your data is being used and exercise your choices. Don't be afraid to say no.
This has been really eye-opening. We've covered a lot, from defining opt-in and opt-out to looking at laws like GDPR and CCPA, and even specific examples like those ads and email marketing. It's clear that the whole landscape of how our data is collected and used is changing pretty rapidly.
It is. And as we move forward, it's going to be even more important for both businesses and individuals to understand and navigate these issues.
Well, before we wrap up this first part, I can't help but wonder if some companies are kind of dragging their feet with all of this. Like, are some of them just hoping to keep collecting data the old way for as long as possible?
It's a fair question. And yeah, some companies have been slower to adapt than others, but the tide is turning. Consumers are more aware of their data rights. They're demanding more transparency and control.
It's good to hear that we as users have some say in all of this.
Absolutely. The future of data privacy will be shaped by both regulations and consumer expectations.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of data privacy and consent, and we're just getting started. In part two, we're going to delve deeper into the challenges that businesses face in keeping up with these evolving regulations, and we'll explore what all of this means for users like you. So stay tuned for part two.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So as we continue exploring this whole opt-in versus opt-out thing, it's important to remember that this isn't just some abstract debate, happening in Silicon Valley. It actually has real-world implications for businesses and for regular people.
Yeah, for sure. In part one, we were talking about how this growing focus on data privacy is putting pressure on companies to really change how they operate. What are some of the biggest challenges they're facing?
Well, imagine trying to navigate like a constantly shifting maze. That's kind of what it's like for businesses trying to keep up with all the different data privacy laws. We've got GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, LGPD in Brazil. It's a lot to keep track of, each with its own little quirks and rules. And to make it even trickier, these laws are always evolving. Technology changes, new privacy concerns pop up, and the laws have to adapt.
It sounds like a real headache, honestly,
Yeah.
especially for smaller companies that maybe don't have a ton of resources.
It can be tough, yeah. A steep learning curve, for sure. But it's not just about avoiding fines either. For any business, building trust with customers is essential. And respecting data privacy is a big part of that these days. Consumers are a lot more aware of their rights now. They're more likely to support companies that show they actually care about protecting their information.
So it's not just a legal thing, it's a smart business move, too.
Exactly. Consumers are getting more picky about who they trust with their data. They want transparency. They want to understand what's being collected, how it's being used, and who it's being shared with. They want to be able to make informed choices.
Yeah, totally. Nobody wants to feel like their information is being collected and used in some secret back room without them knowing, right?
Right. Transparency is key. Instead of burying this important info in those super long privacy policies that nobody reads, companies need to be more upfront about their practices. Explain things simply.
Yeah, ditch the jargon and just tell us what's happening with our data.
Exactly. And it's not just about explaining things clearly, it's also about giving users real control, right? Like provide easy ways for people to exercise their data rights, whether that's opting out of data sales or requesting access to their info or having their data deleted.
So it's about moving away from that "we'll take your data unless you say no" approach and more towards "we respect your data and won't use it without your permission."
That's the shift in thinking that's needed, yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges businesses are facing, but what about us as users? How does this all impact our online experience?
Well, as data collection gets more and more sophisticated, and companies are gathering more information about our online habits, our interests, even our offline activities, it becomes really hard for individuals to fully grasp how their data is being used, and to control that use.
I think we've all had that experience where you're talking about something with a friend and then boom, you see an ad for that exact thing online. It feels like Big Brother is watching. Kind of creepy.
Yeah, I agree. Targeted advertising can be effective, but it does raise some real privacy concerns. As companies are building these super detailed profiles about us based on our data, there's a risk that it could be used in ways we don't expect or haven't consented to, and that definitely feels like a violation.
So what can we do about it? What steps can we take to protect ourselves in this increasingly complex digital world? Is it even possible to stay ahead of the curve?
It could feel overwhelming, yeah. But there are definitely things you can do to be more proactive. First of all, be mindful of what you share online. Think twice before posting personal details on social media or filling out forms on websites. It's easy to forget that even little pieces of information can be pieced together to create a pretty detailed picture of our lives.
It's like a digital puzzle. Every piece of data we share adds to the bigger picture.
Exactly. Another thing, don't just click accept all on those cookie banners. Take a minute to look at your choices, adjust your preferences. Maybe opt out of data sales or personalized ads if you're not comfortable with that. It might take a bit more effort, but it's worth it to have more control.
That's great advice. What about those third-party apps and services that we connect to our social media accounts or other profiles? Anything to watch out for there?
Yeah, be picky about which apps you give access to your data. Take a look at the permissions they're requesting. If an app wants access to information that seems unnecessary for what it does, maybe think about revoking that access. It's a trade-off, often, between convenience and privacy. You have to decide what's more important.
So it's about being more deliberate, taking an active role in managing our online privacy, not just being passive, but making choices about how we interact.
Exactly. Data privacy isn't just about laws, it's about empowerment. The more we understand about how our data is being used, the better we are at protecting ourselves and making informed choices.
This is all really helpful, but I gotta say, it can still feel overwhelming to keep track of everything. Are there any tools or resources that can make this easier? I feel like I need a personal data assistant just to keep up with it all.
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in more detail in part 3 of our deep dive. We'll discuss some practical tools and strategies that can help you take control and navigate this complex world of data consent.
Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll continue our deep dive into opt-in versus opt-out consent and the future of data privacy. Welcome back to the deep dive.
So in parts 1 and 2, we really unpacked this whole world of opt-in versus opt-out.
Right,
We talked about the challenges businesses face and what it all means for us as users.
right.
But now I want to get practical. Like, what are some things we can actually do to take control of our online privacy?
Okay.
It's one thing to, talk about being mindful and all, but how do we put that into action?
Well, the good news is you can take action.
Okay.
You're not just helpless.
There are concrete steps you can take to, like, manage your data, protect your privacy. It's about equipping yourself with the right tools.
Okay, so what tools should we be packing in our digital survival kit here?
Well, one that I always recommend is a privacy-focused browser extension, something like Privacy Badger. It's like a silent guardian,
Okay.
It works in the background to block trackers and those annoying third-party cookies that are always trying to follow you around.
So like a bouncer for your browser, keeping out the riffraff.
Exactly. Another essential is a password manager. I know, everyone says this, but it's so important.
Yeah.
Using strong, unique passwords for every single account is just, like, crucial for security.
Mm-hmm.
And a password manager takes all the mental work out of it.
Right.
You don't have to remember a million different things. It's like a vault for all your digital keys.
Makes sense. Those are good for like the browser level, but what about all the different websites and platforms?
Right.
Is there a way to manage those settings without going into every single one?
You're right, it can be a total pain to do that for every single site. But luckily, a lot of platforms, like Google and Facebook, now offer centralized privacy dashboards. So you can review and adjust your settings all in one place.
So like a master control panel for your online privacy.
Exactly. Take advantage of those. Control what info is shared, limit targeted advertising, really manage how your data is being used.
I like that. Okay, those are great tools. But beyond the tech itself, are there any like general habits or mindsets we can adopt?
For sure. One of the most powerful things you can do is just to cultivate awareness of your digital footprint. Like, think about the trail of information you're leaving behind with every online interaction.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to forget about that in the moment.
Yeah, it's like we're so used to the speed of the internet, we forget things can be permanent.
Right. So before you post something, ask yourself, would I be okay with anyone seeing this? Employers, family, even like future generations.
Whoa. Okay.
If the answer is no, maybe think twice.
That's a good test. It makes you think about who your audience really is.
And speaking of things we share online, be careful about those quizzes and personality tests.
Whoa, yeah.
Those can be fun, but sometimes they're collecting way more data than you realize.
Right.
And that data could be used for marketing or even sold to other companies.
It's true. Those free services, they often come at the cost of our data, don't they?
Exactly. So just weigh the benefits and risks. Make informed choices. If you're not comfortable with how a company uses your data, maybe find an alternative.
Be more choosy about where we spend our time online.
Right. And remember, data privacy isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about others, too. Think about the info you share about friends and family online. Be mindful of their privacy as well.
Oh, that's a good point. It's easy to forget that what we do online affects others.
Absolutely. By being aware of our own practices and, speaking up for stronger privacy, we can help create a better online environment for everybody.
That's a great point to end on. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of opt-in versus opt-out and the future of data privacy, what's the key message you want listeners to take away?
I think the biggest thing is this. Data privacy is a journey, It's not a destination. It's an ongoing process.
Right.
We're constantly learning, adapting, making choices in this digital world that's always changing. And by being proactive, managing our online presence, and speaking up for stronger protections, we can help shape a future where data is used responsibly, where people have more control.
That's a great message. And remember, you don't have to figure this all out on your own. There are resources out there, like the tools and strategies we talked about today, that can help you make sense of it all.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into this fascinating world of data privacy. I hope everyone found it informative and empowering. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.